In 1619, the first slave ships arrived in the South. It has been over 400 years that African Americans were treated as if they were inferior. 400 years, my ancestors suffered and endured whatever obstacles were thrown at them. While there are other groups and races that are treated unfairly and harshly, such as Asian Americans, Hispanics, and many more, today this speech will focus solely on African Americans. The United States has not lived up to its pledge for liberty and justice for all, requiring the study of diversity, equity, and inclusion in a high school setting may or may not ensure liberty and justice for all in future generations. Some people treat African Americans like we're plagues or diseases, avoiding us and treating us like we have no class, like we aren't articulate, like we're scary. We can't even shop in peace without employees looking over their shoulders, anticipating a robbery. We experience severe prejudice because of the color of our skin, and were falsely accused of crimes we didn't do. Ruby Bridges is an African-American woman who is applauded and respected by the Black community. On the National Women's History Museum website, along with the picture of Ms. Bridges, there's a montage of her life. Wanting a better education, she went to an all-white school. People avoided her, and she always ended up in the classroom with one student, herself. Parents thought her presence in that school with their superior children was so atrocious that they started removing and withdrawing their kids from the school. She was called names and she was threatened, but she was undeterred. Why is it that she received all this hate during the 1960s? African Americans today are still treated as less than. According to Market Watch, African Americans make up 8% of students attending Ivy League schools. Here's something to ponder. How come at some of the most prestigious schools, there's only a handful of African Americans? Even today, in 2022, shopping as an African American is often appalling. When my sister and I walked into Ulta Beauty, we were looking around. An employee walked up to us and asked us if we needed any help finding anything. We told her we were just browsing, and she went about her day. Or so we thought. Sure enough, when I looked to my right, I caught her eyes still upon us, watching us closely, expecting us to do something incriminating. Why does the color of our skin mean that someone has to watch us closely? Why are we responsible for opening people's eyes to make them realize that we're capable of paying for things we want and need like everybody else? African Americans are shot more frequently than any other race. Let's look at the Ahmaud Arbery case as an example. An attorney who swore an oath to discharge the duties of a counselor at law turned around and dehumanized a Black man who had done absolutely nothing wrong. Laura Hogue deliberately twisted and distorted Arbery's character, while also encouraging the jury to think in a stereotypical and negative way. According to Newsweek, a news website, since George Floyd has been murdered, 181 African Americans were killed due to police brutality. The numbers have risen so high that Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences estimates that 1 in every 1,000 Black men can expect to be killed by the police. Now, keep in mind, these are the police that we expect to protect us. Our lives rest in their hands. Again, liberty and justice for all is not well represented by the US. Teaching diversity, equity, and inclusion may or may not help to ensure liberty and justice for all. Though I'm proud that these studies will be required in a high school setting, it's not enough to change the world. It'll expose people to the truth, yes, but I think we should focus more on those around us and our influences, such as our family, our friends, and those we see online. Unable to shop peacefully and being stereotyped, being treated and unfairly is unjust. 400 years, they strive for equality, doing what they could to reach our dream. People celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. What exactly are they celebrating if they're not willing to make the changes he envisioned? 400 years, they were ignored and looked down on. And now, as their children rise and finally take their places in this world, they come back with a vengeance to crush a system, restraining the world from becoming a better and safer place for all to live. Poet Amanda Gorman once said, "There is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it." The light has been ignited. Now, it's our job to lead it to the future.